Well, the next time reveal is just red vs blue again, so I can't do a prediction. Instead, you're getting a review. So, how was John Talbain versus Sabrewulf? It was alright. I don't like being so against the, oh boy, that was a 10 out of 10, I'm so overexcited, that's what I'll say about every death battle's a 10 out of 10 train, but, I mean, because, Death Battle is not Ruby, okay? I still really enjoy Death Battle, and I always look forward to new episodes at least a little bit. I mean, except for Shira's One Woman, but that was an exception, not a rule. I don't want to be disappointed. I don't look to have things to complain about. I look for things to talk about at all, good and bad. And to be fair, there was quite a bit of good to talk about for this episode. Let's start with the analysis. Yeah, I said I wouldn't care about it in my prediction, but it's still 80% of the video. I can't not talk about it. I mean, 80%, I can't just talk only about 20% of the video, which is the animation, and then leave out everything else. First off, the ups of the analysis are pretty blasé. It's usual for modern Death Battle. I never managed to smile, let alone a laugh. 90% of the reason Obi-Wan vs. Kakashi is my favorite this season is because it's the only episode where the analysis made me emote with any joy. And that's just because the prequel memes were gift-wrapped for them. The numbers are where I have a bit of an issue, not speed. They didn't give any speed numbers, but honestly, it doesn't really feel like they needed to in this case. All they needed to do was explain nanosecond reactions equates to light speed. John's scaling is above light speed because of blatantly obvious reasons. Fair enough, putting a number on John probably would have been excessive and also unnecessary. In this case, yeah, I'm alright with the sparsity. Then there's AP. Now there's nothing wrong with Sabrewulf. Scaling him to Tusk is fine, and the Tusk feat, it does come across as weird because the meteor is extremely slow, but that's because they just didn't explain it. It's meant to be a calc based on him pulling a rock from the debris around the orbit of Earth. How do I know this? Because Versus Battle Wiki got a very similar number using a method where they just calced how fast it was moving, assuming that it came from the orbit of the Earth. So I'm assuming that Death Battle have used a similar method, but because I guess they calculated the size of the rock differently or whatever, it just got a slightly different result. Probably could have served to mention it, because otherwise a rock moving this slowly does not look like it should be kilotons of TNT when it's this small. John, however, isn't great. They compared lifting strength and striking strength again, and my main issue is that this is not a matter of speed, right? You can't determine how fast someone's combat or movement speed is from each other. You can determine reaction speed from movement and combat, usually, but you can't really intermingle movement and combat, alright? That's fine. I get it. You don't have a good combat speed feat, so you're going to have to use a movement speed feat. Understandable. A-okay. Well, maybe not A-okay, but understandable. In this case, you figured out how much mass is there, you're halfway there. You've gone halfway through the calc and you just stopped before you got to the part where you calculated how much force it is. Because all you need to do is take the 30 million tons, well, American tons, stupid US tons, not intelligent Australian tons, in which it's like 29 tons, 29 million tons. Take that, look at how far it moved, calculate how fast it was, bam! You have a number, and it would probably be above the kilotons thing, just based on how fucking huge that hive is. You probably would have gotten a higher result than a kiloton of TNT, if you actually did that. Because if you just took 30 million tons of force, that's 30 million ton forces, that's like 76 tons of TNT, which is nothing compared to Sabrewulf. You could have at least just finished the calc. You did half the calc for attack potency. Now, to be fair, I mean, it doesn't matter, because you have Anachrus's number, and if you took that and you just assumed that it was this number in ton forces, that's 2.8 megatons of TNT. So, that is above Sabrewulf. That's fine, but they probably should have explicitly said that Anachrus would have to generate that many ton forces of energy. However, most of my big pluses and, of course, minuses come from the animation. First off, Death Battle way overhyped the gore. Allegedly, someone on the crew said it could make people puke, and are you kidding me? Okay, there's some dismembered people at the start. But then most of the fight is just blood. It's just red blood. Okay, there was a great scene involving intestines. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. That was amazing. Loved it. A+ moment. Mwah. But in a world where Mortal Kombat is mainstream, I'm supposed to believe people would puke over this? Really? Now, okay, it's better than when Rooster Teeth claimed people would puke over episode 12 of Volume 7 of RWBY, because that episode was just 100%, oh, blood, spoopy blood. At least Jon vs. Sabrewulf had nuance. Maybe not nuance, but it had variety. Some giblets, a torn arm, intestines. But maybe next time just be like, it's going to be gory, and don't be like, oh, it's going to be the goriest shit, it's going to make you puke, oh man, it's so gory, because this is so underwhelming for all that hype. I was seeing all these people talking about what could happen. Oh, he could do this and this and that. We could see a scene where he like rips this out and then the other guy rips that out. And all of that would have been significantly better than just a bit of blood. Okay, it's a lot of blood, but it's still just blood. Blood's not unsettling or disturbing. I feel like there are people who would puke, but they're the sort of people who probably would have puked even if it was like just a bit of blood. Cause like, is there really a middle ground there? I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm Australian, maybe? I don't know. I've grown up on this sort of shit, I guess. So it's just sort of white noise to me. I feel like they could have put more effort into it, though. Really sold the brutality. When really it just sort of comes off as a couple of people with slices of paper, just paper cutting each other repeatedly, with an intestine scene in the middle. That's all it seemed like to me. On the note of gore, the finisher was alright. Compared to what we've had in the last 2 episodes, it is refreshing to see a kill that isn't complete dog shit. I personally would have put more time into slowly ripping Sabrewulf's head off. I would have made it seem like there was a struggle, like have Jon tug several times to try to rip it off, and then you slowly see a split form across Sabrewulf's neck, around his throat, slowly splitting off the seams until, BAM! It's torn off with a really satisfying oomph to it, as opposed to just As it is, the death is 1/4 of Goro vs. Machamp, followed by Black Canary vs. Sindel, but more sensible. I was expecting more of a Beast vs. Goliath kill. You know, that was fittingly brutal. No one remembers Beast vs. Goliath, of course, but do that death more visceral, more giblets, add some real impact to it, and you'd have a better kill, honestly. And maybe don't have Jon say a line that made me cringe. I get what he's saying, and I know why he's saying it, but it just sounds overwritten, or maybe underwritten. I'm not sure how to put it. It just sounds unnatural to me. Maybe it just sounds like wrong because the lead-in is weird. Tonight I'll make an exception. I get it, but something just sounds off, and I don't know how to put my finger on it. Maybe because this entire fight he's been acting like a monster. Oh yeah, I love how Wiz at the end tries to make the deciding factor more than just Jon stat stomped Sabrewulf into the dirt with, oh, Jon won because Sabrewulf could never find control, while Jon could. Jon was able to control his own abilities, while Sabrewulf was just a wild animal. But then at the end of the animation, it's literally Jon throwing away control and going full bloodlusted animal. Seriously? You're gonna play this off as Jon wins because he fights with skill and his mind, while Sabrewulf is a wild monster, and then have the fight end with Jon going mad and succumbing to the bestial side to kill Sabrewulf? Seriously? That's some cartoon Fight Club level discrepancy shit. And I guess I should talk about my biggest problem while I'm on negatives. The fight is just so slow. It's excruciatingly slow. And like, it's not always slow. Like, when they really want to make an impact go, like when Talbain fucking suplexes fucking Sabrewulf off the wall, that's fine. It's slow, but it adds impact. But when they're just trading normally, swinging back at each other, it's so slow. It's so slow. It's like swing, pause, swing, pause, swing, pause, swing, pause. It's something I expect from Gorilla Grodd versus Donkey Kong. Look at Sabrewulf slamming Jon's head here. It's like, it's supposed to be a wild animal ferociously pounding Jon's head into the wall repeatedly. But he looks more like Bane tactically doing it over and over to try and do it enough times to disorient them, but then, I don't know, plans to do something afterwards. Like he's planning something out and this is just step 1 of the plan. He doesn't come across like a wild animal who's just thinking, smash head real good. I mean, you were talking about walls, credit where it's due. The scene where they dig into the wall and they fight on a vertical incline is fast-paced, and it's a really cool shot, and it's got a great end to it where Talbain fucking suplexes Sabrewulf. Okay, A+ for effort and for just overall execution. I like that shot quite a lot. But for an example of what I mean by speed, let's go to one of my favourite women in melees, Painwheel versus DiCapre. You really get an idea of how feral and animalistic Painwheel is. It really makes it seem like she's some monster fueled by nothing but her rage and her fury. Or even look at Death Battle's own Ragnar vs. Soul. they're not animalistic, but look at how fast the animation is. It's well done, there's lots of action, and of course the keyframes of the animation make it very clear what's happening at any given moment. Jon vs. Sabrewulf doesn't have that, and it doesn't really make these characters come off as particularly feral. I get that for Jon, but Sabrewulf at least shouldn't come off like he's thinking about what he's doing. Now, okay, it's not just negatives I have to talk about, there are some things I like. I'm not really into the vocal performance for Jon Talbain, it just sort of sounds like a guy with a high-pitched voice trying to go deeper.
I have no forgiveness left, monster. I'm very displeased with you. Oh, not now. Don't make me go crazy, Moon. I don't like that very much. Ooh, I'm gonna go really angry now, grrr. Witness my fire dragon.
I made that sound way worse than actually. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. But Christopher Guerrero, he blows Brendan out of the water. His performance with Sabrewulf is so good. Like, wow. That's like, it's fantastic. It's guttural. It's unhinged. It sounds like a feral monster. Guerrero is just a really good voice actor. He did Carnage, and Carnage was the highlight of that episode for me, was the voice acting for Carnage. So good. So good. Fantastic. And you know what? I also thought the use of the flaming bats was really, really smart. Like, instead of just a silly Sabrewulf shoots a flaming bat out of his wrist, lol. Instead, bats show up, and they light on fire from fire that was set up earlier. The fire that seemed like it was just there for atmosphere, but then actually played a small role in the animation for one of Sabrewulf's main attacks. That's really cool. A lot of thought went into that, and I think that was just very smart and honestly creative. A good use of the environment and of the atmospheric nature of the fire coinciding with Sabrewulf's ability to shoot flaming bats. I think that just works really well. And I really like the black and white palette the animation gets near the end. When the fight has like a Mad World feel, where the blood is the only thing colored. It's a really nice touch that plays into the classic monster movie nature of these characters, and does help emphasize the gore a bit. I couldn't hear the music very well, but it had guttural Brandon in it, so I know I'll like it. Brandon Yates, you're good. he's good, and when he goes guttural, oh, I like it quite a lot. It is a vocal track, and from what little I hear, it's going to be a good one too. It fit the fight as well. It didn't distract like Kings of Infinity. It enhanced like Wings of Iron, just as a DB track should. I'm really glad the finisher also wasn't just the Fire Dragon or some Kamehameha Key Blast. I like that it was more visceral and brutal, and it's probably my second favorite finish for the season. I don't know. Cable vs. Booster's brutal, squishy sounds and the horrifyingly unique nature with the really disturbing animation they've got for Cable being crushed puts it on top for me. It just looks a lot more painful, even though it wouldn't be, because you'd be dead really quickly. So yeah, okay, this isn't a bad episode. Not by any stretch of the imagination. It's not bad. But I don't think it's nearly as good as everyone is touting it to be. Maybe if DB didn't overhype the gore, I would have been more into it instead of just thinking, is that it? But the gore should just be the icing on the cake, not the base. And the base to me was mostly a really slow fight, and I was really waiting for things to pick up. As it is, probably a 7 or 8 out of 10 anyway. I mean, it's still good, but it didn't meet my expectations. And, unfortunately, it doesn't nullify any reason for Lizard vs. Killer Croc to exist. Maybe that one can happen and give us the fast-paced feral animal fight we need. Yeah, this whole time I forgot to mention that the sound design is ass. Like, almost every hit in the fight sounds like it has no impact. Even this part, which is one of the few parts that actually has the speed I was expecting, the sound effect sounds less like you're being hit with a feral werewolf hitting you at the speed of light, and more like you're being hit with a wet udon noodle with a kidney on the end of it. Also, I saw motherfuckers saying the slow animation in the sneak peek was fine because werewolves are slow creatures, and you try to run away from a fucking wolf and say to me they're slow. Have you seen Killer Instinct gameplay? Yeah, sure, slow.